You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Monday. It is time to kick off yet another broadcast week here on the old network. Hope your weekend was good. Hope you're looking forward to a fun trading week. Maybe you're already in the mix, slinging a whole bunch of zero-day, hot and heavy. Either way, we got you covered here on the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are mainlining these days. Remember, if you want to join us this week for the Pro Q&As, if you want to join us this week for Options Oddities, another banger last week after Vol Views, you want to get in the chat to heckle all of my co-hosts here, and of course ask some fun questions, and indeed get your name in the hat. Man, we're coming up. The February Pro Trading Crate will be racing out the door post-haste. You want to be the one to catch it. Only one place to go to do just that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Welcome to all the folks who have been joining us. Your name is now entered automatically in the hat. Congratulations to you, as well as you win the grand prize of a podcast feed with, man, nearly 500 episodes. I'll have to go count, but it's north of 400. I know that. So a lot waiting for you. The second you hit that join button over there, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. And speaking of waiting, you know who's waiting? It's the Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, as well as the uncleist of Mike's, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. I welcome them both now because it's time, listeners. Yes, it's that time to get dangerous. It is time for a little bit of 80s trivia. Here we go. All right. Gonna mix things up a little bit again today. We have been getting asked for, I don't know, over a year, well over a year. Because, let's just say, people accuse us of bias in one direction or the other. Okay, oh, you favor this person, you favor that person, blah, blah, blah. Your questions are too difficult or they're too timely, whatever the case may be. They said, what if you get an actual 80s edition of Trivial Pursuit? That'll maybe even the playing field. Because then we don't choose the questions, you guys choose the questions. So, through no small effort and expense, mostly by the super producer, you guys should thank her, she did track down an actual 80s edition of Trivial Pursuit. I am looking at it on my desk right now, the old blue box everyone is familiar with. So we will try this out. This could be kind of fun to see what... Now remember, this was trivia written in the 80s, not necessarily about the 80s. As I recall from playing Trivial Pursuit back in the day, questions or literature from the 50s, and they go all over the place. So careful what you wish for here, but you asked for it, you shall receive it. 80s Trivial Pursuit. Let me just refresh our memory of our listeners and you folks on what the categories are in vintage 80s Trivial Pursuit. There's blue for geography. There's purple for arts and, just entertainment. Art is something else. Yellow is history. Brown is art and literature. Green is science and nature. And orange is the category I think Uncle Mike's going to be mainlining. Sports and leisure. So I think what we'll do to be fair, to make it interesting, I think the loser should be able to pick the category. And so we'll go that way. So the Rock Lobster is behind right now by half a point. So Mr. Rock Lobster, pick a color. You're the one who wanted this the most. So ask and ask and ask again, and you shall receive, sir.
Let's do the science one.
First off, are you excited? How long have you wanted this?
I am. I you know what? And I'm gonna pick science. I feel like that's kind of in the money, or kind of sort of in between, and we'll see what happens.
All right.
Was it science and tech, right?
Yeah, science and nature. Science and nature is the official name of the category. All right, gentlemen, get your hands on the buzzers. This is our first official 80s Trivial Pursuit question, listeners. And the question is, science and nature, what became mandatory equipment on U.S. cars on March 1st, 1968?
Airbags.
Oh, wait, you got a buzz, but okay.
Buzz.
Okay, buzz. That is not correct. Can you steal Uncle Mike?
What was the date? You didn't finish the question.
March 1st, 1968, I said.
I buzzed, and I'm going to go with seatbelts.
Yeah,
yes.
That's a good one.
Uncle Mike wins. Andrew, you know what?
I was like, because it was 80s Trivial Pursuit, but I'm like, airbags in the 80s, sugar honey iced tea. It's all right. I love the question.
Again, that was 1968, so I told you, it's not going to be all 80s-based trivia. Airbags for Tosaw.
I think that was a fair shot right there.
All right, there we go. No umbrage can be taken. Uncle Mike, he was up by half a point. Now he's up by 1.5 points.
Gosh, he tripled his lead. Oh, my God.
I really would like to take some umbrage. It kind of doesn't feel right. I should be taking umbrage in some way, but I really can't.
I don't know. There's no umbrage to be taken. It's just the cool way to go. Speaking of the cool way to go, listeners, let's keep on going right on into the uber cool trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there on the screens today. And how about that, listeners? Was that a fun blast in the past, I should say? This is for me looking at this blue box. Kind of fun. Ah, yes, the trivia game that in many ways kind of kicked it all off out there, listeners. Certainly in the 80s it did. So, yeah, we have mountains of cards here. So we have lots of trivia to get to. So look forward to that. Did you get that one? Seatbelts? A couple other things you could have thrown in there. Maybe you were leaning towards catalytic converters. What did Andrew say? Airbags. Airbags, although we all know came along later. But yes, interesting stuff out there. Let's see, are the markets interesting today? Yeah, they are. It kind of depends where you're sitting. If you were Uncle Mike, you were probably sweating a little bit earlier this morning. In fact, dare I say it, the klaxons were going off. It was all hands on deck, red alert, because earlier this morning, listeners, we broke through 6,000 in the wrong direction. And I know Uncle Mike is just not equipped to deal with red on the screens, let alone breaking through seminal levels in the markets in the wrong direction. It's just not how he's programmed. He's a permeable. Markets only go up. So when we were breaking through 6,000, I think it was all hands on deck. Red alert, battle stations over there at St. Charles Wealth Management. Thankfully, he got together with his friends over there in the all bulls all the time Facebook cabal, and they managed to turn things around. And as we're kicking off the show, S&P back above 6,000. So Uncle Mike can cancel red alert, at least for right now. About 6,020, a little bit north of that right now, listeners. So S&P up about 0.15%. Again, that's a rounding error in today's market. If you don't like where it is, just wait 5 minutes. Chances are it'll be lower or it'll be markedly higher, one or the other, but probably won't be hanging out here. Dow up about 0.5%. Dow's been kind of the laggard of late, but now kind of looking a little bit better. And the NASDAQ, they were really shellacking it earlier this morning. And now still down, but only down about 0.25%. So we'll see. Is this the moment? This is another day where the worm turns and we have an intraday whipsaw and we end the day firmly in the green, or the bulls going to exhaust themselves. And then is someone in Uncle Mike's Facebook group going to get the old get the wrong message, do the fat finger error, and start selling by accident, and here you go. The indexes go back down again. Either way, listen, that's where we're hanging out right now. VIX cash was higher earlier in the morning. In fact, let's see, how high do we get to? It got up to north of the 18 handle, 1808 to be precise in VIX cash. Right as we were coming into the start of the show, we were at about 17 3/4. It has drifted down to about 17 and a half now. That still puts it up about 1.5 points from where we were on the Thursday show, but still so elevated, but not quite explosive out there. A VVIX at a 104, up about 6 points, so back north of that pivotal 100 level that I know a lot of folks keep an eye on as well. All right, Uncle Mike took home our inaugural first Trivial Pursuit 80s edition trivia contest. So he gets, I would ask him, there's not much really to ask about seatbelts. So I don't know if he has any enduring memories about seatbelts. But Uncle Mike, how were you feeling this morning? Did you have the cold sweats as we dipped back below 6K, sir?
Hey, I do want to say something about seatbelts, though. Seatbelts do save lives. There was actually a time that I was driving my car. It was actually maybe 2 weeks before I went off to training camp with the Bills, and I was getting ready to head into an intersection, and then this one idiot decides to go the wrong way. He decides to go westbound on the eastbound lanes when there is a median. He was trying to go the wrong way for like maybe 20 feet so he could get into the right lane so he wouldn't have to go around the block. And I was heading towards an intersection, and this idiot crashed into me. And from there, my head actually knocked off the rearview mirror of my car, and I popped a bursa sac in my knee. That wasn't a big deal. I was kind of shaken up a little bit, but I didn't have any serious injuries. Popping a bursa sac in my knee, that was like an everyday football injury, but it felt like I played a football game right afterwards. And there's no doubt in my brain that had I not been wearing a seatbelt, I would have been dead. So what I do want to say to the masses is that seatbelts save lives. And if you don't wear a seatbelt, you are stupid.
I think we can all get behind that. It is pretty much a very easy thing to do. And the result of not doing it could be horrific death. So why wouldn't you do it? The benefits are non-existent and the risks are absurdly high. So yes, I think we can all concur, and it's kind of the old Darwin Award. You don't wear the seatbelt, you kind of earn the prize, sir.
It's God's way of weeding out the stupid people, right? So anyway, with this market, it's kind of we did go below 6,000 for a little bit today, 59.77, but I had to tell all my followers that we have the option block today, and we can't have red on the screen if I'm talking on the option block, especially on a Trivia Monday, by all means. So with that, markets came back, and it seems like 6,000 is kind of like a magnet in general for the marketplace recently, in that we started the year down below it, but it came back to it. We can't really get that much above it, but 6,000 seems to be where the market wants to be at this stage. So in terms of some other things, bonds, there's a little bit of buying going on in the bond world. Silver's down a little bit on the day. Gold's up a tiny bit on the day. In terms of just some other stocks it's kind of like the theme for this year is some things are going down and some things are going up. Microsoft, for example, Microsoft is down 0.8% at the 404 level. Taiwan Semiconductors down almost 2% at the 194 level. However, we have Apple that is up 1% on the day. We have AbbVie that's up $2.50 on the day. Just in general, it seems like we have some things that go down and some things that go up. On some of the higher flyers that I like to look at, Palantir, that's down 8% on the day at $93 at this stage. But it was down at $89, so it's up $4 from there. So it's rallying. Who knows? We have that. Tesla is shockingly flat on the day, so we're not seeing a lot of movement from Tesla, although it was down a lot. It's at 338 right now. It was at 324 at one stage during the day. So we have that. And then we have Credo Technologies down 5% on the day, but Astera Labs is flat on the day. So there's a lot of things that are going down and a lot of things that are going up. And the things that are flat right now, which I would put NVIDIA in that camp, are not doing anything. So it's a very interesting day, to say the least. I think we're getting a lot of rotations happening with everything that's going on. And the market doesn't quite know where it wants to arrange its furniture, if you will. But I think we're going to get some type of a move in this market once it figures out how it wants to arrange the furniture. And like JP Morgan's another one. It got the crap kicked out of it last Friday, but it's down 0.5% on the day today. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this market, to say the least.
Mr. Uncle Mike, I have to mention this to you. I forgot. On Friday, you were invoked again on Friday on VolViews. Because if there's another reason you should be in our pro chat, listeners, because a lot of people float around in there, a lot of people lurk in there. The Flow Master goes in there all the time. So does Mr. Once and Future Dr. Vix, and he was in there during the show on Friday on VolViews, and he revealed, dare I say it, a bombshell to all of our pro members. I'm just going to reveal it to all of you because it's too good of a nugget to keep to myself, and also because you were invoked in it, Mr. Uncle Mike. But he went in the chat. I don't know how I never knew this. I don't know how I never put 2 and 2 together. Russell's been on my programming for ages now. And yet, Mr. Uncle Mike, Russell, his last name is Rhodes. Take a flying guess what his father's name was.
Was it really Dusty?
It was Dusty.
No way.
Yes. And
wow.
he informed us of that, which just blew my mind. But then he also reminded us he grew up in Memphis, a few houses down from Jerry the King. So he said he wants to come.
How have I've known him for many years as well. How have I not known such a cool thing about him?
I don't know. And he knows about our 80s trivia. He said he wants to come on, he still thinks it's 80s wrestling. He said he wants to come on the 80s wrestling trivia and wipe the floor with you, he said.
Oh my goodness.
So
wow.
I don't know if his dad is Dusty Rhodes. He might have a good chance of doing it.
I don't know if I can hang with that. Wow.
Just childhood buddies with Jerry the King, going home to the dad, Dusty Rhodes. Wow. Yeah, that I don't know how I didn't know that either. But that's the kind of nuggets, the bombshells, listeners, that are just dropped willy-nilly in our pro chats. Another reason why you should be heading out over there to the pro. You never know what secrets will be divulged. So I don't know, Uncle Mike, we might have to have him on, do a little 80s trivia off. The Rock Lobster can maybe wave the checkered flag for that one. I don't think he's going to want to play.
Well, maybe the Rock Lobster could have him sub in for him one day. But I don't know if I want to do that, because I do fear the bionic elbow of Dusty Rhodes.
I don't know. He could win like 10 points.
Nobody gets away from the bionic elbow, and I don't know if I can handle that.
I don't know. That would be interesting. I might be a fun little. Maybe we'll do a side segment one day. Just 80s trivia battle royale. You versus the son of Dusty, son of a working man, son of the American dream.
Oh man,
I don't know. That you might have to start brushing up, sir. I don't know. That's
I'm a little bit scared, not gonna lie.
So you have been called out. So just letting you know, we might have to make that happen.
Oh boy,
you got called out on Silver last week. Now you're getting called out. Man, everyone's coming for Uncle Mike these days. I don't know what's going on. You're in the people's crosshairs, sir.
I guess so.
I can see Rock Lobster is sweating virtually as we speak. He's like, all this talk of 80s wrestling makes me nervous. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, I spell you, sir. You don't have to play in the battle between Uncle Mike and Dusty, the son of the working man. But what is catching your eye in the market, sir?
There is some sort of sweet poetry to the fact that Russell's dad or granddad is Dusty.
Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it?
It does not surprise me. Oh, what's going on? Market traded 6,000. It looked like VIX shot to 20 for a while this morning, and then no. Now, normally when VIX trades 20, it's going to do so one more time. Usually trades twice. So I think the biggest tell here is some high flyers have gotten their knees capped, which is always healthy, some pullback finally. And I think traders are starting to realize that if the Doge cuts $1 trillion in spending this year, that means the GDP growth will be 0 for the year. I don't know, but people have to. If the government is $2 trillion in spending and GDP growth is X, there's going to be less spending. So there is that. So the idea is, and I think the market's like, okay, bonds are Bond market is, I would say, stabilized. So I think there was and I think part of the sell-off, I could be crazy, but they were batting around the idea of like large refunds to return the Doge savings. And this is classic where so many ideas come out of the White House or related to the White House. They're just ideas, and everybody gets all upset about them. I would doubt that those refunds would be going out, but politicians are politicians. They'll do whatever they're going to do. So
it would seem to defeat the purpose of the savings to then just distribute them.
I thought that would be somewhat defeating the purpose, but it's funny. You see some thread on Twitter, and all of a sudden it becomes gospel. So I think overall, there could be some economic slowdown if the government's going to spend less money. Is it going to be better in the long run if, we could maintain it for a while? Because, I got to say, it didn't take George W. Bush long to blow up the balanced budget we had under Clinton. So again, you always can be hopeful, but you have to trade what's in front of us. And right now, the market has tried several times to want to stay below 6,000 this year, and it just does not want to do it. I think overall, if there's some stabilization in government finances, we'll let the U.S. economy do the rest. And I think overall that should be positive. And that's kind of, and I think, and now we have NVIDIA earnings coming out, but there hasn't been a lot, after the initial euphoria, let's call it, or just the fact that the election was over. We kind of feasted on that for a while. Like you want some good economic news. You want some positive growth stuff. So and I think that's kind of what we're looking for now. When that economic data is negative, it's like the old days. You remember, Mike and Mark, when, hey, bad data, the market went down because that wasn't good. It wasn't that it's a reason for the Fed to cut. So bad was good and good was bad. So I think overall these are getting back to sort of more healthy relationships and not being so dependent on ridiculous government spending and the Fed doing their financial machinations. I think long-term will be better. And I think we're kind of in a little bit of a flux here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of beat around the 6,000 level for a while. I mean, we could rally some, but at this point we need some pretty solid news to get things going.
Well, we don't need solid news today, Mr. Rock Lobster, because today, I think, pick your adjective: explosive, impressive, holy S. Keep it family friendly. We're seeing some paper out here on the tape today. Listen, I think just the fact that dipping below 6K, that seemed to just scare the hell out of all the bulls. Uncle Mike's Facebook group, they were buying things left and right because we are seeing a hell of a lot of volume on the tape. Right? I can't remember the last time we were this explosive by this part of the show. Let's just blow through VIX right now, because VIX is kind of the lone laggard on the board. Only 426,000. If you just look at VIX volume, you'd think it's just a normal average day out there. The ADV 789, so dipping back below 800K. But SPY, holy S. SPY closing in on 7 million contracts already, 6.95 right now. Usually this time of day, we expect a little north of 4, 4.25, 4 1/3, 4.5, maybe 5, maybe even 5.5 if things are just nutso. 6 million, get the hell out of Dodge. Almost 7 million. I'm hard pressed to think. In fact, I had to go back. Let's fire up the old Flowmaster machine. I can only look back over the past year. The highest we've been over the past year was March 8th. He had a total of about 13 million, 12.9 million contracts. We are clearly on pace to threaten that today if this keeps up. So unless being back north of 6,000, maybe things settle down now. But if we keep this up, we are going to blow past that nearly 13 million contracts like nothing, listeners. So yeah, a explosive day. I mean, it's 7 million contracts. It's kind of hard to analyze, but let's try anyway. Let's see what the hot things are out there in SPY today. Spoiler alert, it's going to be all 0 day. Yeah, that's actually, not take it back. There is one. First off, the most active contract in SPY right now, 316,000 of the 602s. We are at right around 601.5, 601.40 when I ran this, listeners. So slightly out of the money calls, followed by 309,000 of the 601. So right there, you're talking about 625,000 contracts just in 2 0-day strikes. It's just crazy town. Then the pars, the 600s, 271,000 of those. If we go all the way down, listeners, looks like about number 12 or so. Then we've got the one of the few, only looks like 3 contracts are not expiring today. The first one, 150,000 of the March 490 puts. 490 puts. Interesting, listener. You think we can threaten 490 in the S&P by March expiration? Looks like somebody doesn't think so. Looks like they sold these for 28 cents. But again, it's a penny-wide market, so you never know. In the past, we've seen a lot of put bombing out here. That might be a fun little flash poll. We like to do these little, what would you do? Would you be a buyer or a seller? Would you be buying more? I know Uncle Mike would be buying some S&P at 490. So he'd be selling those puts. Would you be selling them? Either way, nearly 7 million contract listeners. That is just, I think the technical term is a redonkulous. Let's see what else is lighting it up out there. You know, if the SPY is putting it up, then the S can't be far behind, and that is the case as well. 2.45 million contracts on the tape, so closing in on 2.5. That's almost exactly 750,000 contracts more than we expect this time of day. So the S, also hot, also spicy, 3.36 million on the tape is the ADV right now. And let's see really quickly. Anything not expiring today? No, the S is monolithic. It's all 0-day all the time. The number one, you could probably guess, it's the par puts, 6,000 puts. About 50,000, almost exactly, of those have gone up today. All over the place, obviously, as we're breaking through it and then back above it. So 6K, obviously a pivotal level. When we get below it, watch out for Uncle Mike's Facebook group. Coming in hot and heavy, buying us back up. Speaking of hot and heavy, small caps listeners saying, don't forget about me. 1.2 million contracts on the tape. The ADV is 1.25 million. They're almost there right now. So just wild stuff out here across the board. The big dog in small caps today, 70,000 of the March 207s. Again, this is why I love small caps. They say, 0-day pshaw. Let's go 70K of the March 207 puts. By the way, small caps IDOM right now at 218,000. Those went up in blocks. Looks like paper's selling them for around $2.19. So would you be a seller of the 207 puts in March for $2.19? Somebody was, for some serious size out there in small caps. And let's us not forget the name that's been leading the dance of late. This is the Qs. Wherever we're heading in a day, chances are the Qs are getting there faster and more aggressively. Right now, 3.6 million, almost 3.68 million contracts on the tape. And the Q's usually 2.25 this time of day, maybe 2 if it's a little bit lighter. Almost 3.7 million. I mean, you're talking 1.5 million contracts almost above where we expect them to be. The ADV, 4.00 million, not 4.01, not 3.99, exactly 4 million contracts. And yeah, we're probably going to hit that before the end of the show as well. And just to be even, Steven, let's say 192,000 of the Feb 525s expiring today. We're at 525 right now, so nearly 200,000 of those have traded today. Man, this 0-day palooza. By the way, the Qs right now also 20 for 20, 0-day right now. So pick a strike around the at the money that's expiring today. Chances are it's in the top 20 and putting up some size today. I think the technical term is holy crap. Listen, I've been so preoccupied with all this index madness, listeners. I didn't even get a chance to run our single name most active. So you know what? Let's do all that now together, listeners. Let's get all the hot action up to the second ourselves. Let's see. What does it cost us? What is coming in at number 10 today? You know what, monster? You didn't make the cut. You kicked to the curb. Number 10 is AMD, listeners. And if you're saying to yourself, is it a banger day in the single names because it's a banger day in the indexes? The answer is 335. You can read into that what you will. It's not 250. It's not 180. So it's certainly respectable. Not quite impressive. I think north of 350 through 60 at the very minimum to be considered impressive. You got to really be north of 400K. Probably threatening 450, 460 to get into that impressive territory. But 335 is nothing to sneeze at. That gets you to our old pal AMD. Off about $1 today, 109.86 a range of 108.16 and 111.60. So it's done a little bit of living today, hanging out right now at 335,000 contracts. And the number 10 spot, the gatekeeper to the top 10 today. Number 9, Uncle Mike's favorite, it's Softy, 361. He was just talking about some names are up, some names are down. Softy is down 404 and a third, off about 387, almost 1% on the day. A range of 399.32, so it broke 400K ever so briefly, and a high of 409.37. Softy, number 9, 361. Number 8, our old pal Intel. We're just talking a lot about them. They had a bunch of highlights on oddities this past week. People are lighting up Intel right now. Intel, number 8, 396, 24.68, off about 20 cents. It's had a range of 24.80 down to 23.60, so it's actually had a pretty wide range out there today, actually hanging out near the upper band of its range, which is kind of interesting. Intel, number 8, 396 on the tape. Number 7, listeners. Can you guess? Can you guess what number 7 is? It is good old SMCI, 54.10, off about $2 or 3.5%. A range of 56.25 to the upside, 50.25 to the downside. So nigh on a $6 range. Actually, $5.99 is technically 50.26 to the downside, but still, that's quite the range. Number 7, SMCI. Listeners, good for 465. Number 6, listeners, it's the Amazonians, 471 on the tape, 214.90, off about $1.70 or about 0.75%. Another one's had an interestingly exact range. The high, 217.72, the low, 212.72, exactly a $5 range on the day, hanging out a couple of bucks north of that lower end. Number 6 today, listeners, the Amazonians, 471 on the tape for them. Number 5, back to China we go. It's Alibaba, 129.43, off $14.32, nearly 10%. Holy crap. The range, 128.44, the high, 135.80. So kind of interesting. But yeah, they have been riding a high over the last few days, obviously, over the earnings and, of course, the plan to invest over $50 billion in AI over the next just 3 years. They were 127.64 a week ago, and then they sold off to about 124.80 before popping hard last Thursday, up to 140. Actually, they got up to about 144, coming back off of that now. Just interesting stuff out here for good old Alibaba. Number 5, 598. By the way, yeah, the range of 128.44 today, the high of 135.80. Number 4, let's keep it rolling. Let's go from B to A. Let's go out to the fruit company. They just announced their new, cheaper iPhone. Does the market like it? I guess the answer is yes. Number 4, the fruit company, 677 on the tape, 247.89 is where they're trading right now, up 234 or almost 1%. They've had a range of 248.86 on the upside, 244.42 on the downside. Number 4, the fruit company, 677 on the tape. Number 3, 2 and 1. Can you guess them? You probably can, but can you guess them in the right order is the question at the end of the day. What's number 3? I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Up, Tesla. Did you say Tesla? I bet you were thinking the other one. You were thinking the P one, weren't you? Nope, it's Tesla. Number 3, 1.34 million, 337.76. Kind of unched right now. Had a wild start to the day. Got up to 342.40, and then they crushed it to 324.70. Just a whooping. And then they've since rallied actually exactly 13 handles from 324.70 to 337.70 right now. So they've had quite the recovery, but man, they were coming for it. I wonder how Russell's little secret weekend UVIX trade did this morning. Had a nice opening print, I'd wager to say, even though he is doing some different stuff now. He's not just buying the UVIX anymore. Listen to Vol Views if you are intrigued, or indeed go check out his Pro Q&A, where he went deep into how he's using straddles and also some front month, second month stuff in the VIX futures. A lot of things going on there now. But intriguing stuff. Number 3, it's Tesla, 1.34 million. That means number 2, listeners, it's 2 and 1 now. It's AI just dominating our tape. It's Palantir, $93. Man, I was just looking at some out of the money. These strikes would be deeply in the money. Put flies just a few days ago. Man, this stock has been wild. 93 even right now, off 8 1/3. So if you were pissed at yourself before, you said, hey, man, I'm upset that I missed it back in the high 60s, low 70s. Well, you're not quite there, but you're getting another swing at the bat, maybe. Got down to 89.30 today, 93.05 right now, off 8.30 or 8.2%. A range of 99.01 to the upside, 89.30 to the downside. Palantir right now, 1.35 million. That means the big dog, Still managing to hold its crown, but man, they're coming for it today. It is NVIDIA, 1.95 million. A lot of challengers coming for the NVIDIA crown right now. NVIDIA up a whopping 21 cents, 134.64. Kind of unched. It's had a range, though, today. 138.59 to the upside, 130.61 to the downside. Almost exactly an 8-point range, listeners. Hanging out kind of in the middle of that right now. Good for a comparatively light for NVIDIA, only 1.95 million. But now we got to get rolling, listeners. We've had a fun start to the show. We got to keep going into a little bit of the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Yeah, we don't usually spend that much time on the volume, but today is a freaking banger, I think, to put it mildly out there, listeners. So, wow, yeah, a lot going on out there, listeners. If you can't find something to trade today, you're just not trying hard enough. Let's get out to what's lighting up the eye of Sauron today. Let's kick things off in Baxter International, healthcare name out of good old Deerfield, right down the street here, listeners. Ticker symbol BAX, BAX. 34.86, up a little over $1 or about 3% today. On the year, though, not exactly been a banger. A year ago, they were trading exactly $42, so they're off 7.15 right now, or about 17%. So not a great year for Baxter. That said, they did end the year even worse. They ended the year 28.34, so they've had a decent new year here after ending the year at 28.34. Obviously, they have rallied to start the year nearly $6, about 19%. So if you want the tale of two tapes, year to date, they're looking pretty good. If you go back a full calendar year, not so much. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out there today. Looks like they're looking at the glass half full approach. Somebody came in this morning and said, you know what? Those June 37 halves, how are they? They got $1.10 at $1.30. They said, you know what? I think I'll pay $1.25 for 9,500 of those bad boys. The stock was $34.66 at the time, so slightly lower. You're obviously going to get earnings between now and June. The question is how many, and it looks like you're only going to get one because the next announcement is on May 1st. So if you think you can maybe double dip, maybe get an earnings coming up in the next week or so, and then another announcement before June. Unfortunately, no. So $1.25 gets you one announcement, also gets you a decent amount of duration out there. 52-week high is $44, so they have blown through that in the past. The question is, do you think they can get there by June expiration? Mr. Rock Lobster, this is nearly a 30 vol, about a 29 vol. Are you feeling the love for these June 37 halves in Baxter International, sir?
The love for some Baxter International calls. I'm just trying to think of something less interesting trading options than buying calls in Baxter International.
Maybe some crappy utility?
I mean, aren't they kind of like a crappy utility, but for medical care stuff or something like that? I'm trying to.
It's not an inaccurate description.
Yeah, they make like hospital beds and something like that. I'm gonna. All I can say is the duration is good. So if you're going to be a call buyer, in my view, you got to buy some duration because they don't decay as fast. If you're buying short-term calls, you got to be so right. It is scary because just of the decay and everything else. So while these are not my favorite calls, they are not down on the day. Now, is it possible that this, because I think the healthcare companies have been kind of getting smeared a little bit. And this is definitely one of them. Yeah, medical tech, all kinds of weird stuff. So, what are they going through? They're going through a little earnings thing here. I don't know exactly what's going on. Probably a lot of write-downs or something. Now the stock is actually just traded like 30 bucks. It's trading 35. That's like on a 4-day bender after some good earnings last week. So I'm just going to say these aren't terrible, although the stock itself is not very enthusiastic. But stock was just trading near a 1-year low, so I think these could easily pay at some point. I mean, the price is right. You're paying a 25 vol for June, so and the stock, I think these are totally reasonable calls, but the stock itself is not very exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only thing that really I get excited about is the duration. Nothing else really floats my boat about these. At least they're not expiring next week. We have seen nonsense like
that. Yes. Fortune 500 company that just reported, I'm going to buy the calls that are going to expire next week.
Yeah, that we have.
How many calls have gone to die on my sheets over the years that I have done that on? So I try to do it less now.
Well, listeners, you like these? Or are you kind of like us? You kind of like, it's a trade. Let's keep going. Let's keep it in healthcare. Let's go out to GoodRx Holdings. Ticker symbol GDRX. I do believe this is a newcomer for us. They have subsidiaries including FlipMD and VitaCare Prescription Services. Trading $4.90, up about a dime or about 2% today. On the year, it's been mostly a dumpster fire. They're off about 25%. Their high was 9.25. Looks like they hit that back in July of last year. So ever since July, the last 6 months of the year into this year have been an atrocity for this. I will say, though, they are off their lows of 409. So if you want the glass half full, that looks like they hit that around November of last year, November 15th. So from then, they're up a little bit. So there you go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, it seems like somebody is feeling that those upside animal spirits again in GoodRx. They came in this morning. They said, how are these March 5s, which are pretty much at the money calls? The stock was $4.82 at the time, so slightly lower than where it's hanging out right now at $4.90. They got 25 cents at 35. They said, I will pay 35 cents, good sir. 6,057 times. And in case you're curious, there are going to be earnings between now and expiration. In particular, they're coming up in a couple of days, February 27th. So we got a good old-fashioned, pretty much at the money swing for the upside fences in GoodRx. This thing has been much higher over the past year, 9.25. It also has been lower. So Mr. Rock Lobster, at least you get an earnings in this, and we're going to find out pretty soon whether these calls are worth anything. What are your thoughts on this little bit of upside swing for the fences in GoodRx, sir?
I would say this is a company that might benefit from the Doge and healthcare, if they do Medicare, because they do generic drug platform stuff. It appears that they make some money. I hate the duration on the call. However, because they're paying like 100 vol for it. So maybe something here rings the bell a little bit. I don't think it's terrible, but also it passes the very important sniff test of the option block, which is profitable on day one. So whoever is buying them, their nose is highly tuned.
I know, chat. You folks like these? These are not terrible. I mean, you're obviously could be spitting into the wind on these if you don't get a good number in a couple of days. But at least you'll know in a couple of days. You're not getting all the duration out to June, but you're already also not shelling out all that premium as well. But again, it's a cheaper name as well. So I'm curious what you folks think. Upside calls and biotech and related names are kind of what the odd block was built around. So we'll keep an eye on these as we keep on rolling. It's Thursday. It's time to unleash the beast. That is Uncle Mike. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody, it is time for Uncle Mike to hold court for 2 hours on just how much he sweated when we broke 6K in the S&P today. Have at it, Uncle Mike. The floor is yours.
Hey, I'm doing okay because 2025 is the year of the collar. That's what I've been saying. And I want to kind of expand on that a little bit today with some of the crazy names with which I have collars on right now. Some of them are down, some of them are up, of course, but the ones that go way down, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And just a quick revamp of the strategy block from a couple of weeks ago. What's available right now in a lot of high-flying names is that you're able to buy an at-the-money, buy the stock, buy an at-the-money put, and then sell an out-of-the-money covered call, and a lot of times roughly 10% above where the current price is of the stock. So essentially you set it up to where you have little, if any, risk, a lot of times less than 1%, but potentially 10% of upside over the course of 1 year. Now, with that being said, one thing that I want to point out, and this is something that happened to me most recently when Facebook was just introducing the metaverse a couple years ago. I was actually in a trade like this on Facebook a couple years ago when they introduced the metaverse, and Facebook just got the tar beat out of it. And I'm like, oh, all right. So it looks like we're going to be on the 0% side with this trade, meaning we're not going to make anything because Facebook was down an arm and a leg. But what we were able to do on this, and this is something that if you're 1 year out, it doesn't always happen as easily as you'd like, but if you do get a major move to the downside, and by major, I'm talking 40 or 50%, something like that, like what we had on Facebook when it went to the bad metaverse announcement. What I was able to do was buy back the out-of-the-money covered calls for a few pennies. It was very minimal, and I'm like, okay, instead of having my risk at 0.2%, now it's going to be 0.4% or something like that. But what ultimately happened with it is Facebook, this is about when it was becoming Meta, rallied back, and we were able to make a pretty significant profit on it because it rallied back above where our short call price would have been. And so what I want to emphasize for those of you that are doing 1 year collars, and there might be 3 of you in the audience that actually are, but you never know. For the investment advisor crowd, this is something that I think is a very valuable tool, quite honestly. And for your long-term safe boring portfolio, I think it's an amazing tool. If the stocks do go down significantly, fear not, because if you can buy back the covered calls, then you have a lot of potential upside in the boring section of your portfolio on stuff that was really, 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 really well protected to begin with. So the moral to today's story, if you have a collar and the stock goes way against you, it's not a bad idea to just buy back the calls for a few pennies. You never know. You got a bunch of lottery tickets instead of a bunch of nothing. And that is the strategy block for today.
All right, listeners, let's keep on rolling. Do a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, buddy, welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where we tell you what the heck you folks have on the brain, actually. And let's look really quickly. Last week, we asked you folks, Palantir currently has a PE north of 600. Do you think AI trumps PE? Does PE trump AI? Who cares if it goes up, or is it time to buy Palantir puts? Over a third, 34.5%, said it was time to buy Palantir puts. Our audience, the savvy bunch that you are, you were ahead of the game out there. Hopefully you bought some Palantir puts. That stock is falling out of bed right now. Our actual question of the week right now, listeners, is about the hot thing. It's all the rage again right now, which is 24-hour trading. We said, hey, 24-hour trading back in the headlines again, which raises the question, should options trade around the clock? Heck yes, heck no, or forget 24/5. I want it all. I want 24/7 options trading. I'll give you a little bit of a reminder. We have asked you a question like this in the past. Last year when we asked this question of you folks, it was around OIC time, April, May of last year. We said, hey, the NYSE is considering allowing 24-hour trading. Do you think stocks and options should trade 24 hours a day? Nearly 70%, 69.8% of you said no. 30.2% said yes. We are coming up on a year later. Has your mind changed? I guess we'll find out. Mr. Rock Lobster, we'll start with you. Where do you fall on the whole 24-hour trading thing for options? And B, which way do you think our audience is going?
I mean, I guess if I was a market maker, I would be sad, or maybe good. I think it's unnecessary, but I guess there's a lot of people that feel kind of screwed by, like, you have those big earnings gaps and you can't trade the options. So that's always been an issue. I think the audience is going to say, yeah, they're crazy and they want the 24 hours. Me personally, I like to sleep, but that's kind of where I am on it.
Sleep is overrated. Mr. Uncle Mike, where do you fall? Which way do you think our audience is falling?
If it could work, but I don't think it will work. And the reason is that if you're looking for it typically on the earnings announcements, I look at SPY all the time, and right after a Fed announcement during the day, there's wider bid-ask spreads on SPY options during the trading day. And if the bid-ask spreads are so ridiculously wide during the day, I just feel that after the close, the bid-ask spreads on individual stocks would be just astronomical. So I don't think it would work. If it would work, I would like it. But if it doesn't work, which I don't think it will, I don't like it.
Our audience, once again, in the negative Nancy territory, 60% right now saying heck no, 30% saying heck yes, and then 10% going in the piggy category of I want 24/7, forget 24/5. Get over there at options and make your voice heard. You can also vote. We just went live with a fun flash poll about what we were talking about earlier, those March 490 puts in SPY. They traded for 28 cents, 150,000 times this morning. At that price, are you a size buyer? Are you sold to you? Or are you going to skip it all, go to crypto, skip it all, go to VIX? Get over there. That'll be a flash poll. We'll keep that live during the podcast later today as well. Right now, 100% of you want to buy it, but it just went live about 30 seconds ago. So we'll see how that shapes up as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until the next episode on Thursday. Right now, the markets are still pretty much hanging out about where we were when we kicked off the show. NASDAQ off about a quarter, S&P up about 0.15%, Dow up about 0.5%, and VIX hanging out a little bit shy of 17.5, but still pretty much in that level. So not a huge evolution since we started the show. Mr. Rock Lobster, we'll start with you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday episode, sir?
Well, like NVIDIA earnings and economic data. So there's some sentiment stuff coming, things like that. But ultimately, everybody wants to see NVIDIA earn big dough. And I think even now at a $3.2 trillion market cap, even if the earnings are great, what's the stock going to do? Be up like $7. So I think from a sentiment point of view, it'll make people happy. But I don't think it's going to move the needle a ton as far as NVIDIA goes, but I think it could give the market a little shot in the arm. They want to see AI forever, so it's a great selling point.
It is NVIDIA's market. We're all just living in it. And sir, if folks want more Rock Lobster goodness, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. Earn while you learn all my trading products. So put out trade alerts and tons of education on how all these options work. The whole idea is you earn while you learn. Crazy concept. And I do all of us at Option Pit, we do all the trades we put out. So we expect to make some money doing this. There you go.
And remember, you requested the Trivial Pursuit. So if it backfires spectacularly, that is on you, sir. I am not responsible.
I could have waited 2 more seconds to hear 1968. That would have flipped my switch to the seatbelt. But I got to say, Tosaw won fair and square. Now my lead is his lead is now up 150% or whatever, so that's kind of rough.
There you go. See, you'll learn one of these days how to play the game, sir.
One of these days.
In the meantime, check him out over there in the land of the pit. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday episode? And where should folks go if they want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives?
I mean, 6,000. You also, NVIDIA earnings are going to be a big deal. So I think that's something you got to watch with this marketplace. And I'm actually continuing to watch Microsoft at the 400 level. I think Microsoft is a big stock. I mean, I know Microsoft's obviously a big stock, and I think 400 is a key number, and wanting to see how Microsoft reacts to 400. And if you're looking to get more Uncle Mike in your life, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. You can set an appointment. Would love to have a phone call with any of our audience members. I always enjoy talking to our audience members when they actually talk back.
There you go. Hit him up over there, stcharleswealth.com. Tell him you disagree with his stance on crypto, or perhaps you think he should go full 100% all in on Palantir. Whatever you think he should be doing. Hit him up over there, stcharleswealth.com. To learn more right now, it seems like our audience is now mixed. 60% want to buy those SPY puts, 40% say sold to you, but we'll see how that evolves out there. Get over there at Options, make your voice heard. That music means we are done for the old OB, but not done for today, not by a long shot. I'll be back in a little bit on the Crypto Rundown, be joined by our good buddy, Mr. Greg Magadini, to go deep, and I do mean deep, on all things going on in crypto vol and term structure and skew and you name it. Shadow term structure. We're going to go deep. Stay tuned for the Crypto Rundown. Should be a banger, as the kids say. Then we're back again with our usual array of content throughout the week. Remember, if you want to get access to those pro Q&As, all that other fun goodness, listeners, including tomorrow, we got a little bit of advisors option action popping off. So Mr. Matt will be back on the network tomorrow. That should be fun if you want to hear that live, of course. Head on over to the Pro Wednesday, of course, our double duty of options boot camp. We'll be joined by all the folks from Tasty rotating on through there these days. I think we'll have Jamal Chandler on next, and then the Futures Rundown after that, so our double header. Then we're back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.